Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great.
So, alright, so let's just get right down to it.
Okay.
You wrote a book called Dirty Electricity. Actually, oh wow, yes, thank you so much.
Wait, I think I know.
It's second edition. I just got it. Now look at it, all started with Edison way back in 1892 when he generated the first electricity and put it into the grid. And it gave the world light and heat and electric motors, but he also started killing us right then. And the reason I know that is because Edison's archives. Okay, well, when Edison started generating electricity, he had terrible problems with the generators, brush arcing. The electric brushes are the parts of the motor that makes the contact to the commutator shaft that picks up the electricity. And they call them brushes because they actually look like brushes. They were wires bound together at the top like like this. Let's see if I can show you. They had wires bound up the top like a brush, and they were wearing out, and they were causing arcing and sparking on the commutator. And he tried to solve the problem by dumping metallic mercury onto his brushes, but that didn't help. It made everybody in the place sick. He had, I think, 9 jumbo generators. They were huge, room-sized things. And so the very fact that he had arcing and sparking tells me he was making dirty electricity, because that's a very simple and consistent way to make dirty electricity. Arcing or sparking, spark gaps to it. And so right from the get-go, with his DC system, he was sending out dirty electricity. So I know that by his own writings. And electric motors are the same way. You go up to you light up a vacuum cleaner in the dark, and you see this nice green glow from the motor arcing. Motors and generators are essentially identical structures. In one, you put a mechanical, you turn a shaft and get electricity. In the other, you put electricity in and it turns the shaft. But they're basically the same damn thing. So this all goes back to the very beginning, and you can actually see big differences in mortality by the turn of the century. That's from 1892 to 1900. The Amish who came here, and it's a Mennonite sect that lives without electricity, they came over in the mid-1700s. And by 1900, their life expectancy was in the 70s. If you lived in New York City, which was electrified, your life expectancy was 43 years if you were a guy and 46 years if you were a woman. So the Amish were living 20 years longer without electricity. So that's my best evidence that it was happening early. The other evidence is that long before we had microwaves, as electricity spread across the country, it's very interesting. People take electricity for granted. It started in New York City on Pearl Street at his generating station in 1892, and it didn't get finished. Electrification of this country wasn't complete until the last farms got it in 1955. So you had over half a century where part of the population had electricity and part didn't. So I went back and looked at the mortality data from the U.S. by state. And the Census Bureau in 1930, 1940, 1950 collected data on whether the residence or the farm was electrified. I used that data and showed that as electrification spread across the country, residential electrification is measured by the census takers, it correlated perfectly with mortality from not just the cancers, most cancers, suicide, diabetes. And if you compare the electrified areas like the Northeast had it first, if you compare them to the South, which didn't get it till real late in the game, or some places in like Arizona and New Mexico, they're just black and white differences in mortality. And even within the state, the electrified parts of the state always had higher mortality from almost all causes than did the rural unelectrified areas. So that's really solid, good solid data. And this is long before microwaves didn't come in until World War II with radar. You know, radar range, that's a microwave oven. That's they used to call them radar ranges.
There we go.
Magic.
Yeah.
You know,
I look like a girl on Skype. All right.
well, you know, like when I first published my first paper on mortality in electrical work, it was just back in the 80s. You were a little kid. I got, there's my peers, the people who do the kind of work that I do, epidemiologists around the world, just a handful of them who were doing this kind of work. And I think 5 or 6 of them called me up that same day that the paper got published and said, "Oh, you got to be nuts, Milhan. Electricity is way too weak to cause mortality problems." I said, "Hey, look, I'm just reporting what I found." And what I did is I coded all the deaths in Washington State for many years, in 1950 to I think 1970 initially, in men and then later in women. Now we have them all right up to date. To occupation, I looked at the relationship between what they died of and what kind of work they reported. And people who reported working with electricity, like electricians and TV repairmen, and people who worked at substations and linemen, and there's about 10 occupations, welders. They had a systematic excess of certain kinds of cancer, leukemia especially. So I wrote it up and got it published in the New England Journal of Medicine. And so I just told these guys when they called me, one woman, I said, "Okay, if I'm wrong, show it. Look at data." So another set of data to show that I'm wrong. And of course, within a couple of weeks, they'd all looked at data sets and found exactly the same thing. So not only did they not show I was wrong, they said I was right. What it's about is it's about solar. There are newspapers that I don't want to interrupt what we've been saying, but I show that there should be great caution with the green energies because they're lethal. I've looked at dozens of residential solars and some of the big they're paving the desert with the solar cells out here. Bureau of Land Management, federal lands mostly, and federal subsidies. And the electricity they make is full of dirty electricity. I've measured from many places. It's horrible. But I've measured the users too. If you use that electricity, you get dirty electricity in your house with the 60 cycle stuff.
Wait, could you tell the people how you measure this?
Measure dirty electricity?
Yeah.
You measure, well, a couple ways. I got a meter. I can run over and get it for you and show you what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I can show you my whole duty bag here. Okay, let's see if you can see this. This is, I carry this when I go measuring stuff. It's a oscilloscope case. And in it, here's my main tool for measuring dirty electricity. It's called a microsurge meter. It's marketed by Stetzer Electric in Blair, Wisconsin. This is a special one. It measures 10 times the one you buy. The other one goes up to 2,000 units. What it measures is the rate of change of the high voltage transients. That's what dirty electricity is. It's harmonics and transients. It's stuff in a 60 cycle, riding on a 60 cycle waveform that shouldn't be there. And that's why the utility is called the dirty electricity. I didn't. And it's also called, they measure it in terms of power quality. If you have poor power quality, you've got a lot of dirty electricity and harmonics in your electricity. So you just plug the sucker in. It's got a plug on this side, see? And you read it instantly. It gives you a reading. And you'd like to get 50 units or below. In fact, some governments have specified that 50 is the action level. But I go to hospitals, I get 20,000 units of this stuff. I go to a house that's got solar, I'll plug this thing into an outlet, and I'll have them shut the inverter off and watch the changes. The other thing I do is I've got this gizmo. It's a 2-channel oscilloscope. See, it's got the two channels up on top. And what I do is I measure the 60-cycle waveform. And in fact, I can show you a nice little trick that I discovered recently. This little antenna extends. If I put that on the scope, and turn it on, I can. Oh, here, this happens to be a tracing I got. Well, you see all this stuff up here. That shouldn't be there. And you can see this. It's got a kind of a sinusoidal sine wave. That's a dirty 60-cycle waveform. It should be nice and skinny. But let's just measure things picking up right now. There's a ton of dirty electricity right here. Look at it.
Shit.
See all that garbage? How it's moving in real time. That's one way of measuring. This is measuring what's in the air. And I can show you another thing that's really interesting. I found out when if I changed the timing on this, and I got to 20 milliseconds. Let's see, go to run. Can't see what I'm doing now. Okay, let's go. Go to 20 milliseconds. I get this characteristic signal everywhere I bend in the West, and between Mexico and see if I can show it to you. I caught the mystery signals on my way from. Oh yeah, there it is. I'll freeze it. Show it to you. Maybe I show this one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Okay, so
there shouldn't be anything on the screen right now. That's 60 kilohertz. I can tell how the frequency is because it measures it for one thing. And I can take the distance between the peaks with the cursor measure and measure the time. That tells me the frequency. The only thing is 60 kilohertz is the national clock, and it's exactly 60 seconds a second. So I discovered this thing everywhere. I just found it here at my tails. I see it up in the Cascade Crest Trail. One thing that's interesting about it is it's strong in the ground, in the earth. I think the military's got some sort of a communications project because why would it be on top of mountains out in the desert and islands out in the middle of the South? Put this back on so you can see the face here.
wow. All right.
So that's how you measure it. Actually, take a waveform, and this machine allows me to, once I capture the waveform, I push it on a button, I'll look at the harmonics. So there's multiples of 60 cycle. They're very important because, like in cows, harmonics, those that are 3 times 60, multiples of 3 times 60 are the ones that bother the cows and stop the milk. Even ones get a lot of obvious. So that's how I do it. And I actually measure the current in the ground, the voltage in the ground.
Okay, let me just ask you, in the most basic the most basic way you could explain what dirty electricity is.
That's simple explanation. It's called electrical pollution. The industry knows it causes sound distortion. If you're into audio or video, you have to have clean electricity, or else you get static. The other tool I use funny for dirty electricity is AM radio. I keep one in my goodie bag. It's a Radio Shack. It's a Radio Shack portable. What I do is I put it on, turn it off station at AM, go out and I measure power lines that shouldn't have anything on them except 60 cycles. You can pick up all this high-frequency stuff that's on the wires. And unfortunately, the weak link in solar is the inverters. See, solar, photovoltaic solar, they take light and if sunlight hits a thing, it makes direct current. You can't use direct current. Everything runs on alternating. Well, everything runs on DC, but you can't buy DC from the utility. So the thing that changes the DC to AC is called an inverter, a grid intertie inverter. So if you have solar on your house roof cells, and you want to sell to the utility, you're tied to them, you have to have an inverter. And the big ones, like I measured the 23 megawatt solar farm, it's got 46 inverters. Each inverter is the size of a school bus. It's got all sorts of junk in it that changes the DC to AC. Then they send it all to a switch gear room. And from there it goes to a substation. It goes up to the wires and then they ship it to Timbuktu. But I've measured each stage of that game. It's dirty, very dirty. And it's disappointingly dirty because I was hoping that this would be a great way to get away from fossil fuels. It's even worse. The wind turbines are horrible. I've measured a couple of reservations that have wind turbines right next to them, and the people are sick. The air is dirty, has dirty electricity, the ground, the wires, and it's all coming from the inverters and the turbines because they have the same problem. They have to make grid 60 cycle electricity. And the devices that do it make a mess of it. They make dirty electricity.
All right, I have two questions for you. The first one is, yes, but it's Christmas time while we're doing this, and there's people with Christmas lights all around them. Is that an unfair statement to say that Christmas lights are giving people cancer?
Well, probably, I wouldn't concentrate on that.
But I mean, is it an unfair statement to just say in general, if I tell somebody all the lights in your house are giving you cancer?
Well, it's not the lights per se, but the energy they draw. Now, to make a point, I just published a paper. It's kind of obscure, but people have noticed that. Actually, for 60 years, the economists have noticed any time there's a recession, okay, everybody gets healthier. What happens in a recession? People are out of work, they're sad, they haven't got money, yet their death rate goes down and life expectancy goes up. Well, it all has to do with industrial electric generation and use. What happens is when you get a recession, the motors shut off, people are out of work. And so there's a lot less electricity flowing down the grid during recessions. And you get just the opposite when you get a boom. The death rates go up, the life expectancy shortens. Go ahead.
What about where the Amish live now? Do they live 20 years longer now because they still don't use electricity?
Well, what's interesting about them is their life expectancy for men and women is the same, and it's been over 70 since 1700. So they're right about, we're living about the same. Maybe they live a little bit longer. But I'll tell you something else about them. Their cancer rates are half what we have. Their diabetes rates are way less than half what we have. They don't commit suicide. There's no fat Amish kids. There's no child obesity. Zero. None. A good apple.
It's such a good apple.
Hey, I know. I was going to make apple pie, but I didn't. But anyway.
My question for you is this. Who disagrees with you now? Like, who's like the main person that would say that this information isn't true? Because depending on who it is, perhaps I could get them on like a three-way next time.
Well, I do some medical legal work. I testify in court. So you get these industry whores who they'll say the sky is blue when it's black. I mean, so you get these hard guns. I don't know of anybody who's reputable who doesn't work or take money from the cell phone industries who shoots this stuff down. I mean, there's been about 80 reviews of my book on Amazon, and there's one negative one. You could tell he didn't read the book because you can tell he talks about no animal studies. Well, hell, I talk about animal studies. or whatever.
What about like colored light bulbs, like fun light bulbs? Not just the Christmas blinking ones, but like I have like a green light bulb that I plugged in.
Well, yeah, the color doesn't make a bit of difference. The color is just a function of the light frequencies. Red, orange, green. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. At one end, the wavelengths are long. At the other, the frequency or it determines the color. And, it doesn't affect the electrical properties of what's coming out. No.
Okay. Here's another question. When I try and bring awareness to people about this kind of stuff, I find a lot of times they just say, "Oh, everything's bad for you." Like that's the new thing to say. Everybody just says, "Oh, that everything's bad for you."
Yeah, well, hey, look, I face this all the time. I mean, a lot of people say, they're addicted to their cell phones and to the electrical toys. They don't want to give them up. I've got a cell phone. It's never been on in my body, ever. I take it hiking in case I fall down, have to make an emergency call, and it's never been against my head. It's all a speakerphone, so you can use it in those circumstances. But most kids, the phone's on in a pocket in their body.
Yes, that's what I do.
And the guys, their sperm counts are going south, and well, anyway, the kids don't want to give up their toys.
Wait. Okay, now I do the same thing, and everyone I know does the same thing. So what am I supposed to do, like, if I want to carry a cell phone on me?
What are you supposed to do with your cell phone? I know. I tell people that if they keep the phone 2-3 inches away from their head, it's not going to hurt them anywhere near if they put it up against their head. I tell them, would you stick your head in the microwave oven? They say, oh no. So what that's what you do when you stick a cell phone up against your ear. That's why they get cancer or acoustic neuromas. That's why they get brain cancers on the same side of the head. The other thing I tell them is don't put it against your body when it's on, because it's radiating 24/7 while it's on. Don't sleep with it under your pillow. You keep it away from your body, and on speakerphone, and it's not on when it's on your body. It's not nearly as dangerous as if you get it right up against your head and you keep it in your pocket on all the time. That's what I tell the kids.
I go to sleep with one in my mouth. No, I'm just kidding.
I would be surprised.
No way. No, that would kill me.
Of course not.
All right, let me get to one of my questions. All right. The thing I like about you, by the way, is you have no pretense.
I'm too old to have pretense.
I want to... Okay, here's something I want to ask you. I think part of the problem with EMFs and getting the word out there is that EMF itself is not a part of our vocabulary. People don't talk about it every day. And personally, I think it's interesting. And one of the reasons I want to do this interview is because to me there's 3 or 4 common things that are affecting everybody all the time, and they're not in our vocabulary. And that's BPA, refined sugar, which is in our vocabulary, but I'll get to that, and EMFs, and something else that I can't even think of right now. But
look, EMF blows everything else away. I mean, I'm addicted to ice cream. I've been eating it for 80 years. Refined sugar I love. The Amish eat all sorts of greasy, sweet stuff. They make great pastries. The critical thing is, if you don't have the EMF exposure, everything else is rosy. Why do you think you have fertility clinics in every corner in this country? Because women can't get pregnant on account of this crap anymore. I read about that in my book. Stetzer cleaned up a bank, and all the women got pregnant who couldn't get pregnant. And you clean up a school, and dramatic things happen, but kids don't get asthma. Go ahead.
So, how long does a guy have to have a cell phone in his pocket until he can't have babies?
I don't know, but the sperm counts have gone down dramatically in the last 15, 20 years, and they're still going south. this upon a population basis. It's a good thing you make millions of sperm, but because, as you go from 10 million to 5 million, you still can get somebody pregnant. But if people who marginal sperm counts, I think a cell phone could tip them over so they'd be infertile or subfertile.
Do you think it's unprofessional that I'm eating an apple while I do the interview?
No, if you want to eat an apple, eat it. It's your business.
All right, cool.
LEDs, there's some LED technologies coming out that are pretty clean. So I always light the house. The old incandescent bulb is great. They last longer. The compact fluorescents don't last, and they're full of mercury. If they break, got a toxic hazard on your hands.
So, okay, whoever owns these giant lighting companies, do you think they know about this stuff and make their house somehow safer from EMFs for their own family than they do for their consumers?
I don't think most of them care. The people that have to pay attention to it are people who make precision pumps and who work with precision electronic motors. They can't. Dirty electricity screws them up. And people who work in the audiophiles, recording studios and stuff, they can't use the dirty electricity. So they know about it. And, there's a big think tank called the Electric Power Research Institute that is subsidized by the utilities. So for 30 years they've been telling them that they should increase the carrying capacity of the neutrals, put more wires on the poles to get rid of the ground current problem. See, this has been killing cows for 30 years. Farmers have been suing like mad. Very few of them succeed because of all the crap in the ground. And now that we've got a good study out there, it's going to get published soon, showing that 10 millivolts make a cow sick of milk. And so what the utilities are going to have to change, at least in rural areas, or else they get their butts sued. Because now the farmers are going to win, because we got proof. Well, nobody's going to pay attention until they drop or they get sick or their kids get sick. When I first heard about solar and wind, I said, oh, this is wonderful. Now, there is one kind of solar that's good, the kind where the mirrors concentrate the sun's heat on a tower and boil water or heat oil and make steam to run a turbine. But the solar I'm talking about is photovoltaic solar. Now, it's okay if you use the cells to make DC to charge batteries. That's great, as long as you don't make AC from the cells, because if you do that, you have to have an inverter, and I can send it to an inverter website that says all inverters cause AM radio interference, which means they all make dirty electricity. So smoke that one. So they know what's dirty and what's clean. If the people that make them and sell them say that they all cause AM radio interference, what's it tell you? And with wind, it's even worse, because they make sound. The fan blades going, the windmill blades going around make a low frequency sound that makes people sick up to 3/4 of a mile from the wind turbines. And I've talked to a lot of those people. So it's got the sound problem and it's got the dirty electricity problem. I think the technologies are great. They're here to stay. They just got to be cleaned up. Hey, look, I keep sending books to celebrities. I'm just trying to get some angel out there who's media savvy. I tried to get on Dr. Oz. I tried to get on these radio shows, talk shows. Get on Ellen DeGeneres' show. I mean, I wrote Oprah 4 or 5 times. I wrote 60 Minutes. And all of the big people watch movies and they watch TV. They don't read. If I could get on one of them for a little while, we could maybe start lighting people up on this. They don't know what's happening. You don't see it, you don't feel it, you don't taste it. Some people are starting to. The electro-hypersensitives. They're starting to put Wi-Fi on airplanes. A lot of people get sick on planes. And they won't fly anymore, so it's going to cut into the airline's profits.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to do this interview is because I get like a headache every time I'm in a room with a fluorescent bulb.
You're electrosensitive.
So
a lot of people are.
Oh, man. So what am I supposed to do? What's an electrosensitive person supposed to do?
Well, I know people live in their cars. I know people that have moved their houses 4 or 5 times. I know people who they go to Green Bank, West Virginia, where by law you can't have any radio frequency transmission because they got a radio telescope there. And I know some people live out in the Arizona desert, a place called Snowflake. They're going to have to move too because they put cell towers up near there. It's a hell of a problem. In Europe, they built refuges for these people. And,
Did you ever see the movie Powder?
no.
Oh, you would love this. It's like this guy, one of the things he could do is he could touch things and like turn on light bulbs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do the same. I just throw a switch.
I don't know. I'm actually kind of done with my questions, but I mean, if I could, okay, I know what you're saying. You're looking for somebody media savvy, but I'll tell you this. I mean, this doesn't really help you, but I feel like someone like Ellen, for example, would love this information.
Hey,
but
I go to their websites and I give them they say contact with a show idea. And I give them a show idea. Say, hey, look, we could talk. In this book, I show that women are real sensitive about their weight. There's an epidemic of obesity in this country. There's an epidemic of asthma, especially in kids. It's all due to EMF, all of it. It's not due to white sugar. Let me just finish with this, I'm getting tired. There's a study a couple years ago done by Harvard. They gathered all the data on obesity around the world, and blood sugar and cholesterol, and they just ranked places. And they published this stuff. When I looked at the diabetes and the body mass index or obesity stuff, I almost fell off my chair. The top places in the world were all little bitty islands out in the Pacific, with one exception, or there are places off grid. Why that is because little islands, they don't generate their own they generate their electricity from brush generators like Edison's. They truck in fuel oil on barges. They fire up these Cummins diesels, and they're all dirty. So those people in those islands who have this kind of electricity get fat. The top 10 islands, half of them are Micronesia, Nauru, Cook Islands, Tonga, and there's a couple in the Atlantic. And the places like Saudi Arabia off the grid. See, this stuff is it's affecting every phase of our life. It's shortening our lives. I think Alzheimer's epidemic is due to it too. What can I say? I finally wrote the book because I got frustrated with not having any response to this. In fact, I can't get papers published here in this country, which is weird. Okay, well, look, you can call me again anytime. We can pick this up, unless you have something else you want to ask.
There's nothing right now, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, have a good one.
All right, you too.
Adios.
All right.